If you're someone who is not completely happy in their current job, or for whatever reason is just slightly curious about what working in another industry could be like, then this video could really help. I'm Jacob, and I help people upgrade their work life when it matters most. There's push and pull motivation, right? So I help people who are either trying to get away from struggle, whether that's pure dislike of their job or financial hardship, or that pull motivation if they're being drawn to a better career because they're aiming for something at the end of that, be that providing for a young family or just working towards that dream job that they've always wanted. I'm also someone who has switched industries twice successfully, away from what I didn't want to do and towards something far better. So hopefully I can help. Now, before we get into the really juicy ways to switch industry and the nitty-gritty and the mechanics as to how you actually do that, the first thing I would strongly advise you to do is to spend some time sitting and reviewing your CV, which I know is quite a boring thing to do and is often offered as advice, but it really does work. So ideally, you want to be looking at your skills, your experience, what you've done in your previous work life, your current work life, analyzing your achievements, looking at what you've liked to do, what you've hated to do. All these things are firstly going to help inform that switch to a new industry, what you'd perhaps like to do. But also you want to be making sure that at the end of the process of reviewing and updating your CV, you could look at your CV through the lens of somebody in the future who knows you as somebody who is now working in a new industry, then looking at your CV and thinking, yes, of course it makes sense that they made the switch given everything that they're looking on your current CV with. If you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you've already picked out a brand new industry or a new job that you're aiming for and you just want to know how to get there. However, I would really advise you to think if that is your actual end goal and if it's realistic for you to jump there straight away. Does there need to be a stepping stone or an intermediate job for you to jump to first? That's going to get you to that sidestep point for you then to leap forward into your end goal or end industry career aspiration. And what is the goal? And have you considered all factors? Are you after pure fulfillment or enjoyment of work? Are you after more money? Are you after a move? Are you after more status? Are you after more security, more hours? What is it that you're actually looking for? And is that job or industry going to give you that? I also just want to add in at this point that it may be easier to sidestep into another career that's closely aligned to the one that you're currently working in if you're looking for that springboard to your eventual goal. An example of this. So I used to work in employment services, which was working for government-run programs and non-profit organizations, basically helping the people on those programs who were referred to me get jobs. It then made sense for me to move to recruitment because it's essentially the same, but you're just doing it for a private company and for external businesses who are then paying that company to recruit for them. If you're someone, and completely random example, who wants to go from, or who is currently working in something like hospitality, and you want to end up selling houses in real estate at the end of the day, we call it sidestepping first of all, because ideally you don't want to be taking a step down the ladder. And also it's pretty hard for you to just take a leap up the ladder for more pay and better package and all that kind of thing. So firstly, we call it sidestepping because you're ideally going from one job earning X with the amount of perks that you're on now to another job in another industry that's roughly the same. So for example, if you are working in that hospitality job, want to jump over to real estate, could you use or should you use a stepping stone before you get there to give you a better job in real estate when you end up there? So working in hospitality, should you now be looking for an intermediate role in sales, whether that's outsource sales, sales for a manufacturer of some kind of product? At least with that intermittent job, you can then test the water, see if you even like sales. You can prove yourself, you can bolster your CV. Even if you just do what's expected and don't fully excel in that, you can probably jazz up your CV to make it seem like you're going to be the best real estate agent coming onto the market, and then springboard from that intermediate job into real estate much more successfully. That's just a couple of ideas there about how you can go from a sidestep, a stepping stone, up to real estate, rather than going sidestep or down if you try to jump to your eventual goal too soon. I hope that makes sense. All right, into the nitty gritty. So how do you actually go about sidestepping or working in a new industry? So the first thing, you need to work out who you'd like to be working for. And this is just a personal preference for someone who's been working in the industry for 8+ years. I'd really like to encourage you not just to jump on any job search website and throw out applications and hope that the employers that you're applying to are any good. Just bear in mind that if you are doing that with job applications online, you're only seeing a snapshot of the market. You're seeing the jobs that are left after recruiters have mopped them up, after people who have got a bit of nous about them who've gone after employers directly. You're just seeing what's left. And you're only seeing the jobs that are available at the specific point in time that you're looking for. It happens so often, and I've worked with so many people in the past who have taken a job that they've applied for within the first week or within the first few days of when they've actually started applying for. Instead, what I'd really encourage you to do is start plucking out and hand selecting the employer or the type of employer that you want to work for, and then using them as your ideal, and then working back from there, eventually to job applications online if needed, but starting with your ideal employer in mind first, and then working back. So how that works would be to write down your criteria of everything that you would love in a future employer. Write that criteria down. Using employers in that new industry, try and find them, make a list, and then start working through them. A quick top tip that I'm not really hearing from anyone else at the moment that I think would give you a massive edge in sidestepping your career is to go after employers specifically who are current competitors of the employer that you're currently working for. Now, even if you're going after a job that's a completely different role, I'd still encourage you to work out who your competitors are in your current job and then going after that business. The reason for that is that, think about it from the future employer's perspective. If they see an application coming through from a current employee of an organization they're in direct competition against, they're going to think, right, we've got somebody who is on the inside here that if we bring them on board in whatever sense for whatever job, they could potentially give us a little bit of insight as to how that organization works, pass that on to our business, transfer it, and we can use them as a bit of a guinea pig to get some industry insight to improve our business. So top tip there, find a competitor of your current business and go for jobs with them as well, because you're going to be a little bit highly sought after with them. The next step could be a bit of an elephant in the room and something you may think, why are we even talking about that? But what is the actual job that you want to do? And have you actually thought about what your ideal daily duties, responsibilities, and overall role would be? Have you spent the time to make a clear list of those so it's clear in your mind as to when you see a job or when you chat to an employer and they have a job, is it something that matches your criteria and not something that you're just going to get excited about because it sounds fancy? Does it actually align with what you want and what you need for work on a daily basis? With that criteria in mind, again, coming back to the employers, which of those employers hire people who do the thing that you want to do? Conversely, on the flip side, which employers could you go after who currently don't employ anyone doing the thing that you do, but who could really benefit from the thing that you could offer them in the future? So that's what we'd be calling carving a job, approaching an employer, offering them benefit, value of a new role being introduced, and you being that person to pitch that idea to them, and then them taking you on. Essentially, you've carved your own job. Let me elaborate on that previous example, because I know the way I've worded that and the concept in itself can be quite confusing. So we're going after an employer who you could potentially work for in a role that they don't currently employ people for, but that you could do for them. Bear with me. If you're somebody who really enjoys, for example, booking travel, you're super organized, you love the process of planning and putting together an itinerary for your own travel or for friends, could you be some kind of travel agent or administration assistant for a company? Now, a company that doesn't currently have anybody doing that. So I live in Australia, and a huge portion of industry in Australia is done in the regional and the rural areas. So people who generally live on the coast in the cities are fly in, fly out, or FIFO workers. They're put on a plane every week and they go and work in the middle of the country and they come home at the end. For example, could you approach a company who is currently asking the actual employees to book their own travel? Could you pitch to them that you could be the perfect person to book travel for all of their workers? The way to go about that is to pitch what cost savings and efficiency savings and mistake savings you could offer them rather than their own employers doing it themselves. I'm sure over the period of a year, for example, if you're asking 100 grand round number for that salary, would you actually give them that back in savings in the first year if you were doing that job? If so, it would be a no-brainer for that employer to bring somebody on like you to do that job for them. Okay, so we've identified the industry, we've identified the role, the job, we've got some employers down on the list, and you've put together some ideas of how your ideal job could potentially work in a few different areas and in a few different ways. The next is how to actually approach those employers to make them know that you're the perfect person to be doing this for them. Okay, so we've selected our new job or industry. We've selected some employers and written them down of who you'd ideally like to be working for. You've had a real good think about your role and the actual job that you'd like. You've had a think about which employers could potentially hire that, which could utilize you, who don't currently utilize people like you. So it's now time to actually think about how you approach those employers with everything you have, skills and experience, to make sure they know you're the perfect person for their job or to make you a job so that you can slot in perfectly. Let's start with those tweaks to your CV and how we specifically do those, and then we'll have a quick chat about cover letters as well. So just thinking top to bottom on your CV, what's at the top of every CV? It's going to be your name. So something massively underrated that I don't see very often, but that does honestly grab attention from employers, having been on that side of it, is to have some brackets under your name explaining your current reasoning for applying for that role. So it could be Jacob Hawkins, current X, wishing to switch industry to Y, or less wordy than that, current hospitality team member seeking real estate opportunity. Something like that, just under your name in brackets, is going to grab their attention straight away and make everything that they see below that make sense. Because what they're going to do at the minute is they're going to look at your name, they're going to scroll down your CV, see nothing related to the industry that they're currently hiring for, and just discard your CV either as someone who is applying for millions of jobs or just a fake application completely. So just directly under your name, just smaller font in brackets, write down what you currently do or what you're hoping to do, or just what you're hoping to do. Jacob Hawkins, seeking career in real estate. It just makes everything make sense if they can't spot anything that does make sense for them below that. Next is to make sure that your experience on your CV is tailored in some way as best you can to the new industry or job that you're going for. So I'm going to use a really random example here. If you're somebody who is working in a restaurant as a waiter or waitress, but you're dying to work for whatever reason for a legal firm in an administration assistant or kind of a legal assistant position, those two on the face of things are kind of chalk and cheese. They don't really relate. There's not really anything doing in the restaurant or that I'm kind of aware of that would relate to being a high-level admin person in a legal firm. So what you then need to do is, yes, write all your achievements about working in the restaurant. If you're able to serve more covers than anybody else, if you're able to upsell more coffees at the end of the meal than anybody else, all that good stuff. But then also, what are they going to be looking for in that legal firm that you may have done, even loosely, in the restaurant that you're currently working in? So an example of that, if you're working in a restaurant, you may be responsible for taking stock off lorries, making sure that everything that was ordered gets to the restaurant and is ticked off so that the guys in the kitchen know exactly what they've got for. You could jazz that up to being a very highly responsible position, which it kind of is. If you don't make sure everything's coming off the lorry that the kitchen need in terms of ingredients, people just aren't going to be able to order the food that that the restaurant says that they can serve. So you jazz that up. You make it very clear that you're the person who is solely responsible for that and the ramifications if that's not done. And write down that you've consistently done that, which has been giving you the key to keep that job and keep you successful in the role. That kind of thing needs to be tweaked in your current experience to even give you a chance to express your experience and the fact that you'd be actually able to do what's required in your next job already that you've got in place. So as well as your CV, an employer would likely be looking for some kind of what would previously be known as a cover letter, and at the moment would be a message or an email or some kind of correspondence to go alongside your CV to fully explain your CV, your experience, and in this case, why you'd like to switch industry. I'm big on planning. I'm big into having everything prepped before you go so that if the opportunity comes up, you're ready in a heartbeat to get everything over to the prospective employer, just if the role that you're going for is time sensitive at all. So I'm a big fan of planning and having everything in place. So now your CV's in place, let's get that, what's being called at the minute, cover letter, in place as well. What I'd like you to get in place as well as your cover letter are some scripts. So you send your CV, you send your cover letter or the message, and somebody picks up the phone to you because they've seen all the great stuff that's on your CV and cover letter, what on earth are you going to say? How are you going to portray to them everything that you've done, everything that you're capable of, and everything that you'd like to do? In my opinion, it's a really good idea to have some scripts prepared, ready to go, that you've just got fresh in your mind, even if you're not, revising them every day. They're just at the tip of your tongue, so that if that conversation needs to happen, you're prepared more than anybody else to be able to explain all those aspects and get that job. So it's a bit overwhelming to think, God, what am I going to say if they call me, or if they invite me in for a last minute visit or a tour of the place, or you actually physically go to an employer? What do you say? And that's a really hard thing to do. So without giving you the hard sell, on my website, I've put together a DIY toolkit, which is essentially the start to finish of applying for a new job. And a lot of that is going after jobs, what we call speculatively, so that are not currently being advertised and that you're basically marketing yourself for. On there are all of these scripts that you could possibly need for how to do this via email, how to do it on the phone, and how to do it in person as well. They are a good structure without going into the millions of examples that are possible in terms of all different examples. There's a really good structure there, and something that you can just pull off and tweak for your current job and what you're looking to do, and then just have it fresh in your mind. You could print it or just jot it down in the notes. So I did this. Write it down physically or jot it down in the notes section of your phone just to have there. That's all on the website in the DIY toolkit. So please go and check that out. I think it would really help. The last thing we're going to talk about here is the absolute key for you to unlock your next job or your future career in a brand new industry. And before we go into that, let's just recap quickly. So we've reviewed your CV, taken time to fully absorb what you're currently doing, what you're capable of doing through the lens of somebody from the future, from the new industry that you want to work in. You've selected the industry or job that you want to work in. You now know exactly what industry you'd ideally like to be working in and what your job in that industry would be. We've talked about finding the right employer who's going to support you and who is going to be a good fit based on all of the criteria that you've got. We've talked about how to tweak your CV and your cover letter so that when you actually send something to them, it's going to be valuable. They're going to get a lot from it, and they're going to know you're the right person for the job. We've talked about cover letters, messages, how to script so you're perfectly ready to make that jump when you go. So here's the final thing. Similar to a 1980s arcade game, we're going to find the final boss. And by that, I mean, we need to be finding the hiring manager or the boss responsible for hiring, making the decision on the new position in the new industry that you want to work for. We've got to find them and let them know that you're the perfect person for the job. This is your final obstacle to overcome to unlock your dream career. The way to do this is actually much easier than you think. It really, I guess, bugs me and quite upsets me as somebody who's been working in the field for so long that I'm seeing so many people, especially online, on social media, really upset themselves and having weeks, months, sometimes years of applying for hundreds of positions and just not hearing anything back. And I think a huge missing piece of the puzzle there is for them to go out and find the boss and just speak to the person who is actually hiring for that position. Nowadays, we're going to be able to utilize LinkedIn, websites, organizational charts. Working in recruitment, we have to find the decision makers on a daily basis, and we have to do it really quickly because we've got somebody who's bugging us for a job. It's simply a case of finding somebody's phone number online, calling through to the organization and asking for that person, asking for the executive assistant of that person if they're really fancy, calling through to the main business and just asking to get passed around until you hear the name of the person that you know is responsible for hiring that job, and just having a chat with them. Again, those scripts that we've prepared now really come into themselves. But at the end of the day, you just need to be talking to them as a human, letting them know where you're coming from, what you can offer, how you could potentially add value to their business in the future. If they're not hiring right now, when are they going to be hiring again? What would they need from somebody if they were going to be hiring in the future? What potential ideas for the business do they have in the future for their recruitment needs? All of these things, just talk to them. You'll get so much further than just flicking out an email or applying online, or just finding that final boss and having a chat. It is, of course, key with this method, though, to think that it is volume as well. Don't please assume that you're just going to hit the jackpot because you've done all of these things. you're probably going to have to speak to quite a few hiring managers at quite a few companies until you hit the jackpot. Don't expect this to take a couple of days. This could be months of you trying, but at least you know that you're targeting the people who you'd like to work for jobs that you know you'd like to do. Further to that, please make sure you follow up. So even if you have a conversation with the right person and it's not the right time for them, if they've not been so good to you on the phone, they may have just been having a crap day themselves, been super busy. It's really important to follow up. Try and follow up with that person directly. Send them a thank you immediately after the call, after you've spoken to them, just thanking them for the time. Say, hey, really appreciate you stepping off the floor or stepping away from your busy day on a Tuesday afternoon to take a chat from some randomer who would just like to work for you in the future. So follow up immediately, give it a couple of days, follow up again, and then just a courtesy of following up a couple of weeks after that, because you don't know when might be the right time, and you want to be front of mind for that person, especially if they're not doing the whole online hiring, or if they're not even hiring at all at the moment. That follow-up piece is particularly key, because when they do need someone, you're going to be front of mind before anyone else. And again, volume and just rinsing and repeating this process is key. If you don't get anywhere right at the very beginning, at least you can use everything that you're learning from the people you're talking to and apply it to be able to tweak your CV even more if it's not hitting the mark, or if the initial message you're sending or the way you're talking to the people involved in the new industry isn't quite right. At least you're going to know after this process, so that when you have this feedback, you can tweak things. So you're just going to get more successful over time. Having perseverance in this is key. And again, you're miles ahead of the people who are just applying online. You're actually getting somewhere with the people in the industry that you want to work in. So please be patient and give it your all. At the end of the day, it is simply about finding out what you can do and what your potential in a new industry could be. Getting in front of the right people and letting them know all of those great things, so that they know you can add value to them, and in turn they can add value to you and give you a brilliant career in that new industry. As always, over one of my shoulders will pop up another YouTube video. Hopefully they're as helpful as this one. Hopefully it's one of mine, but who knows? Stick around for one of those and I'll see you in the next one.